Welcome to our next episode of Upreneur. We are sitting here with the founder and CEO, Rishi Kapoor of Location Ventures. Rishi, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I know you're in the development industry, and can you just talk a little bit about Location Ventures before we jump into your entrepreneurial path and a little bit more about your business in the industry? Just a little bit about Location Ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. So Location Ventures, we're based in Coral Gables, Florida. We are a multifaceted development platform with 4 divisions that are really just ranging from a desire to be diversified in real estate development. So we have for sale product in our high-end luxury single-family homes and boutique condominiums. Then we also have rental product in a multifamily rental business. And then we have a 4th division by the name of Urban, which is for co-living, co-working, and wellness. All together underneath the Location Ventures umbrella. And we just love developing amazing real estate experiences throughout South Florida at this time. And then our aspiration is to grow nationally and internationally with those 4 divisions.
So now I know you're not originally from South Florida. Well, what made South Florida attractive for you as a developer moving down from Atlanta?
Listen, South Florida is incredible for many reasons that we could spend multiple hours talking about. It's just, I love the culture, love the weather. The lifestyle of year-round ease is just excellent. And it's a great platform in a shrinking world to be able to call home. So, for all those reasons, I after coming down for business school and law school from Atlanta, I'll always be a Southerner at heart and love that city. But South Florida, I've now been here longer than my life in Atlanta, and I just love it. This is home.
Now you went to school down here and you decided to start the business down here. What kind of gave you your desire for entrepreneurship, your desire to be able to be in business for yourself, than opposed to taking those degrees and deciding to go work for somebody else?
Yeah, it's a great question. My entire life, I grew up thinking I was going to be an attorney. And my father is a licensed attorney and obviously made his success in real estate the priority in his life with what he was able to accomplish over nearly 50 years of developing throughout the Southeast United States and India. But I had always had the interest of being an attorney. I kind of joke on both sides of my family, going back to my ancestors, that was the calling for many people in our family. And I was in the University of Miami my senior year there in business school. I studied finance and management, and ultimately I entered the business plan competition there my senior year. And I have to say it was a life-changing experience. Number one, just focusing on a passionate idea. I was paired with extraordinary mentors at the University of Miami, and I had already gotten into law school and decided that I would continue to go down that path and get my degree and license. But really the bug was implanted in me my senior year of undergrad, and that was really the beginning of the journey that I'm in on now.
What in particular about that exercise kind of got you excited about running a business for it? Obviously, it sounds like you're in an entrepreneurial family, which we found many of the entrepreneurs out there come from an entrepreneurial family. But was there something involved in that exercise that said, you know what, this is the path I want to go to start my business? Or was it just a matter of you kind of knew it already and that solidified it for you?
I really didn't know, to be honest. And I love studying business, and And I obviously had the legal passion. I really enjoyed my accounting and finance and management and marketing classes and experiences. And I was just starting to grow I guess, my perspective beyond just thinking about one field. And all of that, really was like a petri dish for entrepreneurship. And then getting into the competition, it was just incredible to really focus that, look, you don't need just one aspect. You can put all of it together, and that's what being an entrepreneur is about. Is when you're, CEO, and whether you interpret that as chief everything officer or chief executive officer, especially in a startup sense, it's so fun to be able to use all of those facets of your brain. And ultimately, that was what was invigorating about saying, look, I'll have the legal background. I've got a finance and management background. I get marketing and sales exceptionally well. And when you're able to combine all of that into an idea that you can focus all of your energy behind, it's a really intoxicating way to make a living. And I don't feel, I'm one of those examples, I almost cringe in using the cliche, but I don't work a day in my life. I get to focus on something that I am creating and something that I love. And it's a complete blend of my lifestyle. And that's the journey, and how I knew at that point that I wanted to focus on an entrepreneurial career.
Well, and I love the industry you're in, because you actually get to see what you've built. I mean, you're changing skylines, you're changing cities. For the businesses that I have, I joke I'm like selling air. It's financial instruments that people really can't see, touch, and feel. In your industry, you get to really build stuff that is actually tangible, that you can be able to see. And I know there's a lot of people that find the real estate industry a sexy industry. I mean, leading up to 2008. Everybody wanted to get into rentals, and everybody wanted to start flipping properties. Obviously, that got a lot of people out of the business too in 2008, but I'm starting to see people starting to think about it again, creep into it again. Can you just talk about getting into the industry? Obviously, you had some experience from your family, but what's some bad advice that you hear for people that are getting into the real estate industry that you would say, hey, don't follow or don't listen to this? And on the flip side of that, what might be some good advice too?
Sure. So I love real estate. I grew up going to Ramada conventions and traveling with my family. My father ended up resigning from a job at Lockheed when his salary was matched by the rent income that he was collecting off of his first investment property in Marietta, Georgia. And ultimately, that was kind of the beginning of him growing into developing single-family homes, industrial warehouse space, communities, as well as 20 budget hotels throughout the Southeast, and then a significant portfolio of Class A office space in the Southeast, and then also in Delhi, India. So I grew up in that, and that was the product of what, from a tangible asset standpoint, it's what we knew. And ultimately, I then wanted to match that with the entrepreneurial passion that I felt and previously spoke of here. So when we were getting started in South Florida, I got with my father, who was investor number one. I'm very thankful for that, in being able to start with our first single family home. And we ultimately grew that to now a portfolio of just over 650 million of active development that we are developing in South Florida, which is really exciting to be a part of, and to be able to grow what was an initial idea into a platform that's really moving. So as far as let's say bad advice, I have to say, for real estate as a whole, you have to be patient. Real estate is not a fast-moving industry where you get in and out of deals like you were talking about financial instruments or just even software, for an entrepreneur who's sitting at home and able to write software on a $25,000, startup budget, if that even. And real estate is an industry of extreme patience. So if you are able to work through problems, that's not just capital, that's working with contractors, that's working with financiers, that's working with government, lawyers. I mean, the list goes on and what it takes to put together a successful real estate deal. I would say if you have a personality that is willing to be patient and tolerant, that is the probably right attribute for a successful career in real estate. And then, as far as your other question, I guess I kind of merged it with good advice, but in addition to the conversation of needing to have patience and tolerance, I would say you just really need to surround yourself with a balanced team. And what I mean by that is you don't need to employ. One of the beautiful things about real estate is you don't need to go out and to pull off, whether it's $100,000 deal or whether it's $100 million deal, you don't need to surround yourself with a fixed team. Now that's great if you can, but one of the beauties of real estate is that there's this entire ecosystem of contractors that you can hire as needed for your development project. So whether you're fixing a house or whether you're building a skyrise, I would urge people to not get fixated on large organizations with large overhead, and realize that one of the strengths of real estate is that you can control all of your costs on a project level variably by staffing up with consultants and contractors as you need. And I think that that's a really big pro for somebody that's considering and starting a new real estate venture, that they really aren't tackling it alone, and that there's an entire ecosystem of people out there that can help them execute their vision.
No, I think it's a great point. I have a bunch of close friends that are developers, and I'm always jealous that that they don't have the people issues that I have. I have 500 employees with one of my companies, and I'm talking about some of the things that go on there, and they don't. They're contracting. Maybe they have a small little skeleton crew that helps out with all the projects and kind of running things, but they don't have that large organization, yet they're still able to make significant dollars for themselves and run really big projects. And I think the interesting part you talk about with this patience is, I don't think people most realize you build a big condo development. You as a developer aren't making any money until the last 10% of those condos are sold. The rest of the time, you're just running the whole thing, waiting to get to that point. And I think that the patience probably is a really good advice. Now, one of your secret sauce, from what I understand and what you've done really well, is been able to attract good investors. It's allowed you to scale relatively quickly with the size projects and the diversity of projects you have, which are those 4 verticals that you were talking about earlier that we can get into. But can you just talk a little bit about how you've attracted investors and what you do to make sure you're bringing on the right partners?
Yeah, it's a great question. My investors are everything to me in my professional life. They are our partners. They are who enable us to do what it is that we love, which is to create. Number one reason I'm in real estate is to create incredible experiences. That is my product. That is my passion. That is what is my offering to the world. And my investors are the people that allow that to happen. So when we started, it was just my family. And, I'm very fortunate. I thank God of coming from a family that had the means to be able to allow me to pursue some of these early ventures. But then I wanted to grow beyond that. And in order for that to happen, you have to then open yourself up to taking outside capital and investors. And that definitely changes the dynamics of how you run your life and your organization in a real estate firm. So for us, it was an evolution. Definitely, we started with one division, which was high-end single-family homes. And then what we were creating there opened doors for our multifamily business in a renovation project that we took over near the University of Miami. We acquired 24 out of 24 condo units and renovated every inch of that building into what has become a very successful rental project. And then that success and showcasing that as like the next scale of what we were doing was a stepping stone for our condo and urban business. And all of that was about understanding that there is a sequence to capital raising and attracting investors. You might get lucky that you could, with the right partner or the right one-off project, go out and attract the Blackstones and large organizations of the world to JV with you, but it's highly unlikely in your early days. So for us, I remember the first experience I had was I knew, okay, I want to grow and I want to accelerate. So how are we going to accomplish that? We're going to accomplish that by bringing in outside capital. Okay, who is a relevant audience to be able to bring in outside capital based on where I am at this phase in my career? And I just started researching around and found a capital services firm by the name of Aztec Group, which I'm sure many people know of. And I just remember one night, it was 10:30 p.m., and I looked up the principal's email address, and I just sent a cold email announcing who I was. We happened to be in the same building, and just asking if it was possible to meet. And I got an email within 10 minutes that Sunday night. That was kind of the next change in my trajectory, accepting a meeting invitation for the next day. And from that moment on, I mean, the people that Aztec Group represented and introduced me to, and some of their principals directly investing with us. I mean, it was a life-changing experience, and I'm very grateful to them for the doors that opened. So that was the first move of being able to attract outside capital. And then from there, we've just been blessed.
Well, I love how that started with just a cold email on a Sunday night. I mean, it's interesting on how there's a series of luck and hard work, right? You're working on a Sunday night, you're doing emails, but it was a little bit of luck. That guy was on his other side of emails and responded right back, and you were smart enough to leverage the fact that you guys were in the same building to get a personal connection to be able to do it. And those there's probably a bunch of cold emails you sent that didn't work, but this one did, and this one led to a lot of success, which is a pretty cool story. Then how did you decide, as you started to look at investors, going through who was the right investor or not? Because one of my friends always says you can't do a good deal with a bad partner, and so no matter how good the deal is, you don't have the right partner. How are you determining who the right partners were, especially being new to Florida in the sense of the development side, not knowing the right people? How did you go about choosing the right partners?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, to your point on luck, one of my investors, one of my closest friends and investors, says ultimately the harder you work, the luckier you are. And I think that's a phrase that I would urge any entrepreneur to take in, that there's definitely luck out there, but if you put in the effort and you're in the right field, and you find yourself in a good sequence and surround yourself with appropriate people, you'll find that the luck will come to you. So I think that's important for any entrepreneur to keep in mind. And then as far as investors and partners, I mean, listen, I kind of laugh. It's like I'm a big baseball fan. I mean, I love sports in general, baseball being my primary love. And this is an approach where your batting average in the 300 to 400 category would be considered excellent. And the reason I say that is, you'll end up speaking to lots of people when you're out capital raising, And especially if you get into, you've got some success behind you, let's say in real estate, you can work, there's an entire ecosystem of capital markets brokers that exist to introduce you to capital. So the conduit is there to be able to find at bats. But I will tell you from personal experience, I hear no, honestly, I hear no, it's not the right fit from more people than I hear yes from. And that's okay. You've got to have thick skin. You got to have the type of attitude that, okay, this isn't a fit. And then we've had people as a part of that where I wouldn't call it the majority, because we do our research on who we're talking to, and it's not like a random thing. And we've gotten offered, significant amounts of money, but it just wasn't on the right terms. I recently had to walk away from a $15 million investment just because it wasn't the right fit for our organization. So it's not just the money, it's the people on the other side, and then it's also the terms of which the money comes with. And that's what many people might not realize, is that it's very much like a marriage with every partner. There's so much that you can contract and be able to account for and know that you've got everything figured out with the best lawyers, etc. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the connection between the principals and ultimately being able to pick up the phone. And if you have a problem or you need to ask for something, to be able to talk to the person on the other side. And it's all about, the number one thing is chemistry, of being able to have chemistry with your partners, being able to have open and honest conversations, and being able to work through good issues as well as bad issues. So there's definitely, in anybody's real estate experience, and I think this would apply to any type of venture capital, there is so much capital out there and growing. And I used to roll my eyes at that phrase, but it is absolutely true. There is a lot of capital out there. You just need to, again, be patient, go through the selection process, and make sure it's a good chemistry fit for both sides.
And I think you're right. The markets have been on a tear for a long time right now. You're seeing people trying to find private placements or other places to put their money that might have a higher return, being worried about low interest rates and where the market is. Can you just talk a little bit about the idea? And I love how you kind of said, the money and the terms are both important. It's just because you can get the actual dollars to be an investment if the terms aren't right or there. But that's a hard thing to a newer entrepreneur, somebody starting to bring investors, to figure out what are the terms that should be good or not. They lean on lawyers, but lawyers aren't, many lawyers aren't there to help you make the deal. They're help you to be able to make sure the deal is structured how you wanted it to be structured, but you still got to figure out how to structure it. So where did you start to get that skill set? What resources did you have, or mentors, or did you go to conferences, or did you read? Where did it come from for you to get comfortable with starting to figure out how to negotiate these partnerships and these investors? Besides, half the battle is getting them to want to give you the money, but once they want to give you the money, you got to make sure it's in the right terms that you want to. So can you just talk a little bit about the resources and where you kind of learned that skill set?
Yeah, that is a confluence of many different things. Reading, growing up in it, and seeing that my legal background, working for a real estate developer during college, and then from there, I've just been blessed with a collection of mentors, which again, the harder you work, the luckier you are. I pursued a couple of different mentors who I just were always willing to pick up the phone and talk to me. And that got me introduced to a collection of lawyers that have been just the best counselors I could ask for. Our primary lawyers being Brian Goodkind and Kenneth Florio. Those guys have been in our corner as teammates, as almost like a consigliere, to be able to talk about deals. And I do think it's really important to find attorneys who not only obviously understand the law well, but also can understand the business well, and I all the time, we have a conversation. It's like, well, let me tell you my business perspective. Let me tell you the legal perspective. Here's your downside, and if any, and we talk through the deal and the structure. So I think it's important to find attorneys that are very seasoned, not only in the legal sense, but also in the business and experiential part of it. But for me, it's been, look, I've been at this for 12 years, and then grew up in it before that. So it's been a collection where I'm just learning and learning and learning from people around me, as well as material that I sought out. And I'm by no means a finished product. I read for hours a day, about other deals, about research, about how to improve. And I would implore that upon any entrepreneur, that you're never a finished product, that it's always about improving and understanding what your peers are doing, because that helps inspire ideas on what could work for you as well. Oh, did I lose you, Jeremy?
Sorry, apologize for that. So we talk a little bit about the business lines that you have,
Sure.
from the rental to the development to urban to forum, kind of how, and what I'm particularly interested in is just how you're running those business lines as separate businesses, and how you have moved from that chief everything officer to, a true CEO. And now you got these different verticals, how that's happening. So maybe just walk through the verticals and then we'll kind of dig into it.
Sounds great. So high-end single family, the goal is to build custom houses, both that are our own inventory as well as for hire by third parties. So, so far, all of our houses are $10 million plus offerings. That doesn't mean we won't do prices at different thresholds, but that's just been where we found opportunities to date. So that house building team is all in-house. We build what we call personal resorts and premium locations. And that is just one of my joys in building really incredible single family experiences. From there, we have a renovation business for multifamily housing. That is a great business that is obviously low hanging fruit for a lot of people. So I would call it, barriers to entry are maybe some of the lowest in this division, where you just have to be really selective to find opportunities that you can renovate and value add. So it's a very rewarding, maybe on the safer side, as far as what you would expect on a risk reward profile. And ultimately that was designed to be a cash flow side of the business, as opposed to the single family, which was designed to obviously be inventory to sell, as well as the fee-based income for the development and contracting services that are provided. And then our third division, boutique condominiums, it's borrowing from the thesis of the single family homes. So we do really high-end boutique condominiums. Our first project is nearly topped off. It'll be the most luxurious residences in the history of Coral Gables in downtown Gables. We're a 13-story tower on Valencia Avenue called Villa Valencia, right near City Hall. And that project is just 39 units, highly amenitized offering, and it's designed to, the mantra we have is condo living without compromise. So the average unit size, 3,000 square feet with 1,000 square feet of terraces. And it's just really meant to be kind of that next evolution of housing for people that are right sizing out of large single family homes and don't want to move into a kind of a small typical condominium type of apartment. We have our second project, which we'll be announcing soon in Fort Lauderdale Beach, which has a similar thesis around luxury and wellness like we do at Villa Valencia. We're the first condo project at Villa Valencia in the United States to partner with Delos, which is a wellness brand for circadian rhythm lighting, for air filtration in unit that can be monitored, as well as for water filtration, and all of that monitored through a smart home system that we include in our offering. So really excited about
so
what
can you,
yep.
For that one's interesting. So talk to me a little bit about how you come up with the theses regarding differentiation in a marketplace, and how you describe the project in the Gables as this high end, or the highest end now in the market, in the Gables, and kind of the demographics you were looking at for there. Just walk me through how you start thinking about that. So I'm planning on doing a project, and instead of just saying I'm just going to build something, you have a very clear business mind behind it. Can you just walk through your process to come up with the thesis?
Yeah, absolutely. So and I'll tell you more about Urban, and that is really the entrepreneurial heart of what I'm working on. So we'll spend some time on that. But the way we look at a deal is, we've got these 4 divisions. They all have different risk reward profiles. They all have different investor appetites. And when I look at an opportunity, we know all of our deals are urban infill. We're going into very desirable submarkets, and we're looking for opportunities where we can reimagine what is there. So when we look at that, we say, okay, which division is this appropriate for? Is it a fit for a condominium? Is it a fit for an urban project? Is it a reno? If it's a single family home community, what's the play? Is it dividing the land? Is it improving upon what is being offered there with one house? So we just kind of sit by, all right, where's the location? Which division do we think it's a fit for? And then ultimately you start kind of thinking through the business plan of, okay, what does the land basis look like to build? Let's say it's a condominium. What do I think my sellout analysis would be on this site? I'm going to look at the comps. I'm going to then decide, okay, if I push the market, and I'm pushing the market to a level that I think is above market, and I know people will pay a premium for the best. And that's all we care to do. Every division we get involved with, we are a best in class operator. We're not there to be low cost. We're not there to be middle market. If we enter one of these projects in one of our 4 divisions, it's just to give the absolute best experience to the customer. So I'm okay. For example, when we looked at Villa Valencia, people told me, oh, you'll never break $700 a foot there. You'll never sell for more than $700 a foot. And I said, why? And we looked at the market, and we understood what was competing. We understood what was in the pipeline. And here we are with 14 out of the 39 units sold on the 8th floor of construction, and more sales than not are between $900 and $1,000 a foot. And I'm proud of that, in the sense that we knew if you go in and $1,000 a foot is kind of this threshold to get a really luxurious product, and that exists in other markets like the Grove or Miami Beach or Edgewater. And we said, listen, there's an opportunity to put that here in walking distance to Miracle Mile. We know there's a market of people that are kind of right sizing out of large homes. So we identified that we had a bunch of feeder markets. We identified that we knew we'd have out of town markets. And we said, will people be willing to pay a premium, but a premium for quality at a very, very luxurious delivery standard? And the answer was yes. So I think that as long as we're not going in a market where we wanted to be $2,000 a foot, we wanted to sell 30% more than what was happening in the market. That to us was realistic by upping the game on the product offering that was there. And that's ultimately how we look at that experience. And if you're looking at a rental experience, and I think it's important, these are all different analyses as you're getting into them. It's understanding.
So talk a little bit about how that same thought pattern that you're doing in building the thesis for those condos falls into that urban concept, and a little bit about what that urban concept is.
And that's exactly where I'm going, is on on the rental side, Urban, which is our biggest division, is about delivering. What was the financial thesis? Financial thesis is how do we get cash flow at new development type of returns? That's what we were targeting as a thesis in this division. Okay, that's the financial side. So how are you going to make that work by offering a product that was meaningful to the market? So we spent years, my primary business partner and I, DJ Motha, one of my best friends in life. I've known him since my days at University of Miami. We were fraternity brothers. He was in my wedding, and he's our CFO. We spent years talking about, okay, how do we come up with an interesting concept for living and working, and then that grew into wellness. And I'll tell you that process was evolutionary over, like I said, years of different experiences that him and I had. So number one, we said, we know there is a problem of affordability in core urban submarkets and desirable cities. And that wasn't just a Miami issue. Obviously, we live in Miami. We do a lot of work all throughout South Florida. And all throughout South Florida, there is this dichotomy of, really expensive, well-to-do areas, and then a whole category of people who have two choices. They can either live in those expensive areas and give up a unsustainable amount of their income towards rent, or they end up commuting just horrible distances to be spending hours of every day in traffic. And we said, this is a problem, right? And this isn't just a Miami problem. This is a problem all over the world where people are priced out of these desirable submarkets. And the same problem on the work side, which I'll get into next. So ultimately we said, let's do furnished micro units and co-living suites. And let's charge a reasonable top line rent. So our bedroom pricing starts at $1,000 a month for furnished apartments in 3 projects so far: Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, and in South Beach. And we'll soon be announcing a different project in Fort Lauderdale as well. And the idea there is that we want people to have a higher quality of life, for them to, so we're solving that problem, right? And any entrepreneur should be saying, if I'm gonna offer a service or a product, is it something people want or need? Am I solving a problem? And then the next part of the analysis is, okay, what are people willing to pay to solve that problem or get that want or need? And then you have to decide, if those things align, can I produce them at a cost that when I factor what somebody's willing to pay, I'm gonna be making a profit that's worth my effort and my risk. So that's the way we analyze, just like any entrepreneur should in any category, how we analyze the real estate deal. So when we look at urban, we understand that we want to achieve a certain unlevered return on cost, and then that has to back into a levered return that we have as our parameters. That is all a factor of our basis plus our construction budget, and then ultimately what we think is a realistic target that people will rent. And then, what I really want to spend some time speaking about is also what we're doing on the work side. So co-working is something that my family has offered in the flex space arena for the last 12 years in Atlanta, Georgia. We have about—
Rishi, before you jump right into the co-working space, because I want to spend some time on it, but I thought you said something important, that most business owners, or most entrepreneurs just starting out, don't always know the answer to the question. And in the tech space, they did a good job really always asking, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yep.
And now that's bled over into most businesses. But as I talk to a lot of people that are just starting a small business, they have a passion and they're building it into, and they want to build it into a side hustle, into another business, they're not thinking through of the problem they want to solve. So I love how you started out with that, in trying to determine where's the problem you're seeing in a marketplace and what would be the solve associated with that. Yep. And I'm assuming you saw a similar problem in the co-working space, which is an interesting space to be in right now, considering everything that's happening with WeWork, considering people are worried about being in co-working spaces. So I'm curious on, maybe what your thesis was to begin with this, but then also how COVID and people's behavioral changes, or at least perceived behavioral changes, has changed your thesis at all.
Yep. So, thank you for the comment on the problem and solving that problem analysis. I mean, that is anybody that's going to be risking their time and their capital. And I use it in that order because time is our most important, really just offering that we have. It is critical that that you're putting it into something that people are willing to pay you a profit that aligns with what your personal life goals are. And if it doesn't pencil out, I strongly suggest people, do not spend your time pursuing that, because you are just going to be basically doing a hobby versus pursuing a profession that is going to get you to your personal and professional goals. And you just have to be extraordinarily disciplined in that analysis. Regarding co-working, so my family, over the last 12 years, we've had 40,000 square feet of flex space throughout our commercial portfolio in Atlanta. And for years, I worked with my father in helping in leasing and marketing, and ultimately getting an understanding of what makes a flex space successful, and ultimately what is it that the tenant is looking for. So we took what my father did in Atlanta, and we've evolved that into Forum, which is our first location, as that's the co-work brand within Urban, that is at 299 Alhambra in the heart of Coral Gables. So we knew our approach to co-working was that I never wanted to play what I call the lease spread game. And what I mean by that is, like WeWork and Regus and many of our local competitors, you sign a lease at X, you hope to sublease at Y, and that's your financial model. And as we've seen in this environment, it is a model where you can be squeezed. So it is not, that keeps me up at night, is thinking about something like that. So we did not want to pursue, we love the flex-based model, but we did not want to pursue it how the business model was being rolled out by many of our competitors. So we said our business model will be, we have to own the asset, and we will dedicate a portion of that asset to flex-based offerings, which I'll get into. And that would be able to make us feel comfortable that by owning it, we're both going to have the opportunity to realize the real estate gains. And then we also are able to realize the operational gains off of the space. Obviously, you have to have the team to be able to execute that, which we have built. So the analysis then became, okay, how do we differentiate? So I would urge this on any entrepreneur, it is okay to get into a competitive market. It is okay to be a new entrant into a competitive market. Just, hey, look, Apple was not the first to invent the computer. They were not the first to invent a smartphone. They just were great, the best, whatever you might call it. They had those attributes in that field. That example, there are millions, literally millions of examples in our history of people that were not first, but they were just better and were able to capture market share. So for us, that was our analysis on how we get into the co-work space and the flex market overall. So how we are differentiating, number one, first and foremost, is we are not a place that is just real estate over one's head. We are a business support and growth center. And what do I mean by that? So every one of our tenants has the opportunity to work with our on-site business coach, who is an entrepreneurial person who is helping the tenant talk about their business. So being an entrepreneur, especially a solo entrepreneur, is a really hard thing to do when you're that chief everything officer. So having somebody to talk to to be able to bounce ideas, to review your sales plan, to review your purchasing plan, whatever that might be, is an invaluable asset. In addition to that, we provide marketing services, administration support, bookkeeping support, a legal referral network, and all of that is available to our tenants. So some of it is included with the rent, some of it is in addition to. But I said, you know what? I don't want to just go out and be another co-working space. I want to be a place where people come and they want to grow their business and they want help. And the real estate is just, it's great to have a phenomenal space for you and your team. But ultimately, the value proposition that we offer is that we're going to help you grow your business. And I kind of joke, it's like the Iron Man suit for the entrepreneurs, is you could go out there and find every part of the team you need, or you could come to us and put on that suit and we will help you grow your business. So that's the thesis behind Forum. In addition to that, we have some, I think, best in class space as far as video conferencing, as far as technology. We have dedicated wired and wireless internet for every occupant in our space. That also opens our network up for businesses that have security needs and sensitive content. So that's another attribute, the technology within our space that comes as standard with every lease. So ultimately, those were the value propositions of what we wanted to offer entrepreneurs, and that is who we are targeting in our space. And then today in the COVID environment, as you had asked,
before you jump into that, I love how you, it's almost like you made an incubator without making an investment in the company.
Yep.
For the resources and support you're being able to provide the entrepreneurs coming through. It's a very cool idea and a unique value proposition. And I love how you said, you don't got to be first, but you got to be better. And I tell a lot of the entrepreneurs that work with me is, you don't got to reinvent the wheel, just figure out how to make the wheel go faster. Most really good ideas that come out are an evolution of the other idea. And so, I think you figured that out with the co-working space, is being able to kind of evolve what it is, as opposed to just a shared space. It's really, allowing them to be able to have resources and support that's hard to go find in one spot. And for somebody that might not have friends that all started businesses, they have no idea where to go for you to provide them. That's very cool. So all that being said, how'd the whole COVID thing start to affect that whole business model and you thinking about it?
What do you mean by COVID thing? What's going on? So, obviously that's presented business plan challenges that you do not, nobody puts that in the business plan, right? And
right.
You can say that of airlines, you can say that of sports teams, nobody underwrites full stop in their business plan. So obviously we've had challenges that any entrepreneur has to, one of my favorite books in the world is The Obstacle is the Way. And, just having this mindset that, not today. I'm not going to fail today. We have been presented an obstacle and we have to find a way to evolve the business plan to pivot around that obstacle. And I think if an entrepreneur holds that in their heart, as daunting as it looks, I fully believe it's always darkest before the dawn, and just keep on your mission and you'll find your way through it, as long as you have, one, the resiliency, and two, stamina, and three, sometimes you need some capital behind you to ride out those storms. So ultimately, this has been obviously a difficult environment where people were required to not, for a long time, to quarantine from their, social distancing guidelines and practices. So we had to modify some aspects of our business, and then other ones it played to our strengths. So what do I mean by that? So number one, 90% of our space offering are private suites. So we are not a flex space where you walk into the space and it's, open floor plans and cubicles. Again, 90% of our total space are all private offices. So that has been something that has been attractive for end users. And ultimately, that was the decision that we had committed to well beforehand, because that's how we are in our space in Atlanta as well. It's much more private offices than it is open. It's more about the flex than it is the co, if you kind of follow my logic there.
Yep.
So,
yep.
So in addition to that, we're following CDC guidelines, and we've upped our cleaning staff to always be present to clean common areas after use. And slowly the world is evolving to getting comfortable. We're doing tours every day. And what has now been the surprise, I guess, that we were not expecting is people out of this pandemic have now realized, you know what? I don't need the square footage that I had before. I don't need 5,000 square feet and a very dense environment. I'm finding out that a lot of my team can work at home. I'm finding out that I need meeting space and congregating space. I'm finding out that I need some rotating offices. And the primary interests that we have on a daily basis now are established businesses that are saying, you know what, I now realize I don't need the type of floor plate that I did 9 months ago. And that is who we are concentrating our efforts in the near term. And that's just pivoting as an entrepreneur as we are, while we do have other solo entrepreneurs and small businesses as well. I will tell you, during the last recession in Atlanta in 08-09, our co-working space did not dip below 80% occupancy. And that was a net effect of some businesses unfortunately going under, and others realizing that they needed to cut expenses and go maybe work from home. But then it was also this phenomenon of larger businesses contracting and reducing their overhead and coming to a space like ours. Because remember, in our price, they get all of the amenities, they get all of the build out, they get all of the technology, they get all of the utilities for one base price. They don't have to go sign a multi-year engagement, although we offer a tiered incentive for committing for a year or longer. Those are all the value adds. And now that people are more comfortable, our entire operation is back in the office at this point. We are seeing in Coral Gables, months ago, it was like a ghost town. And now I would say, my personal feeling is we're at about 75% the traffic, the foot traffic, the vehicular traffic in the area. So it's definitely on its way back. And I feel that COVID concern, while still omnipresent, is starting to subside.
Well, I think you said it right in the sense that people, business owners, have realized their space needs have completely changed. I know that I have 27 office leases across Florida and Georgia, and my appetite for taking on any more leases, or even I'm probably going for about a third of the size space that I would have gone on pre-COVID before that, and I'm comfortable with even having people work from places like your workspace instead of coming to the office. I'd rather sign a short-term lease and take a look at that for the next couple of years in this environment, than go sign long-term leases that I have to build out. So I think you actually could be a winner out of this whole environment and how it works. Hey, 2 last questions for you, a little bit more about yourself than opposed to the business. Share with me, and this could be business related, obviously, but one of your favorite failures. So, a failure that you had, and nobody likes to say it's a failure. I learned from it. I don't have any regrets, but something that was a major setback for you, and it's probably one of your favorite ones, maybe because you learned a lot from it, or it's just an interesting story.
Yeah, and real quick before we get there, I do want to say I believe South Florida is going to be a net beneficiary because of the pandemic, because of people moving down. I mean, we've seen it in every facet of our business: commercial leasing, single-family homes, condos. People were looking at South Florida for taxes, for weather and lifestyle. And now, after realizing the effects of the pandemic, both in a health standpoint, but also in a technology standpoint, that you don't need to be in some of those northern markets, we are already seeing and highly expect this trend to accelerate of migration to South Florida. So just wanted to speak to that point. And then, yeah, look, failure is inevitable. it is something I was horrified about. I think when you're starting a business, and nobody should ever be happy about failure, because that's obviously not why you do it. And there's a lot of pressure, whether it's your own pressure, whether it's outside investor partnership pressure, whether it's your dad, your mom, there's all of this pressure to perform and to succeed. So failure is this thing that you're just, it's horrified out there. And I kind of liken it. I drive, on a personal level, I drive cars on track. It's a passion of mine. And, I had my first big wreck. And in a way, I'm kind of happy to have that behind me, because you realize, what, as long as you are not knocked out, you are going to learn from that. And it's going to be something that helps you perform at a higher level as you move forward. So I had an experience that I'll just kind of concisely say. Before I got into real estate, I did sales and marketing in between law school, and I did this for a few years before starting the real estate business. And I was getting clients like Discovery Networks and IKEA and Samsung and local businesses. I mean, it was a dream. And we got a client who was introduced to me through a very wealthy individual that we both knew. That was his financial backer. And ultimately, the relationship was going great. We got very close as friends, and he became our biggest client in the business. And I was over the moon. I was like, this is a 7-figure account. It could, the services that are needed would support our organization for years. And we had received a significant amount of money already. So there was positive track record. And then we got to the point where the entrepreneur ran into difficulty, who was our client. And he said, hey, Rish, I need, some time to pay some bills. I'm good for it, who's backing me, etc. And I was like, okay, he's needed a couple of months here and there, but he's always come through. No problem. So I let 1 month go, I let 2 months go, I let 3 months go. And all of a sudden, I never hear from the guy again. And that was difficult. And obviously it's not only the services that you've already performed that you were expecting to get compensated for, but then in addition to that, it's your pipeline that was in front of you that you were relying on that was now no longer there. And I'll save you the story of, we ultimately persevered through that. We did not lay off a single employee. That business ended up growing to a point that was much larger than that experience, but it instilled in me the following lessons, which I would share with anybody, any entrepreneur looking in the face of adversity, is, look, that sucks. It hurts. You lose a personal relationship. You've got the pressure of the finances on you. That is not an easy place to be. So find a way to survive. That is all you have to do, is find a way to survive, because everybody will be grateful to you for doing so, including your employees, your stakeholders. You'll make right. You just need time on your side. So find a way to get through it. Then number 2 is you need to diversify. And this is, I think, why you see now my 4 divisions, they're different risk profiles. And this is a direct outcome of my failure experience, which is you need to diversify your income streams. So if you're a one product company or a one service company, that is a very dangerous place to be. When it's going great, awesome. But if something happens to that industry, I'll give you an example. This is why all of my rental properties are mixed use. And a big opportunity there is when we got hit by COVID, we were not lodging where the hotel industry, if they had 10% occupancy, that was a blessing. So we were in a situation where our occupancy did not dip below at any point in the last 9 months below 65%. And that was with a mix of short-term rentals, long-term rentals, furnished rentals. And I am grateful for that. And that is a direct byproduct of that failure experience. And that's just one example in one division. But the overall setup of my company now is to have multiple legs to stand on and to set ourselves up, God willing, in a position where one bad event does not bring down the entire house. So that's number one. And then beyond that is, ultimately just making sure you have pipeline. So I have investors who tell me, hey, listen, we've grown very fast. We've got a lot of irons in the fire. And I said, you know what? It's not about doing all the deals now. I'm not trying to do $1 billion. My next goal, we're at 650 million. My next goal is to be delivering $1 billion of real estate product a year. That's my next objective. One of my investors always said, say your goals out loud and write them down. That's how they happen. So I say it out loud. That's my next objective. So in order for that to happen, I have to develop pipeline. So the way that we do that is not going out and buying every single piece of property that we can, but it's going out there and creating relationships with sellers, delaying closings, making them contingent on entitlements, working with people that's not going to work with everybody. Some people need to sell now. Great. But what I wanted to do was always have my business in 3 phases: in the pre-development phase, in the development phase, and then in the lease up, sell out, or disposition phase. So that's ultimately the way that we've constructed our business, is to have diversified legs to stand on, to have pipeline that is out in front of you in case an event happens. And ultimately, sorry for the long-winded answer, but those are all a result of my failure experience that I told you about.
No, I think it's a great example, and it's good that you were able to deconstruct that failure to really add into learnings throughout your career. And one of the things that I always talk about when somebody's out of college is that one of the first jobs you should take is a sales job or a marketing job, because you can understand where clients are coming from. You can understand and actually feel what rejections looks like. Yep. You understand prospecting and being able to do it. And no matter where you fall into, whether you hit the financial department, whether you get into technology, you have a sense of what sales looks like, because at any point in any business, you're going to have to drive some type of sales, or you're going to have to influence other people to do it. And I think it's a good example of the learnings that you were able to go through. And I think you mentioned about diversified income streams. My father went through a similar example in 2008, and he had one business, and it was one income stream that was significantly hurt by it. And, for me, and I think it's bled into, and a lot of people talk about in entrepreneurship right now, is the concept of multiple cash flow streams. And I think you've done a really good job with your business being able to not put all your eggs in one basket, be able to kind of play in different markets and different segments of each market to be able to do it. And clearly you've been able to scale quickly with the way you've been able to attract investors. So I appreciate you taking the time today. Congratulations on all the success. Got a lot of takeaways from what we had that we'll make sure we put in the show notes. I know you mentioned the book Obstacles Away by Ryan Holiday, which is it's interesting how Stoic philosophy is now turned into business philosophy too, but it's an awesome book to be able to read. Yeah. But I loved 2 of the things I'll say that I just loved in the conversation. One was, you don't have to be first, but just do it better. And I thought that was just a great line to think about. And then how you really use the example of the problems you're trying to solve. And I know we touched upon that earlier. I thought there were 2 great takeaways. So I appreciate your time and having the conversation and walking us through not only the business, but also how you built the business and how you're able to get this type of success.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate you having me, and thank you to all of your listeners as well.
Thank you for watching the Upreneur podcast, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share this with anybody who you think needs to hear it.